Okay, the interviewer is Victoria Cooper. The narrator is Tristan Stone. It is Friday, October 27th, 3 p.m. at the Ruth Patrick Science Education Center, and the interview assistant is Sarah Gundith. So we're just going to start with some basic questions. So basically, like, how are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Okay. Okay, so when were you born?
I was born November 24th, 1989.
Okay, where were you born?
I was born in Havre de Grace, Maryland. It's a little small town on the water in Maryland.
Okay, can you tell us a little bit about your family?
I have a very mixed family. Myself and my brother are the only two. He's my only true sibling. Beyond that, I have 5 other half-sisters.
Wow.
And I have a stepsister and a stepbrother. My dad's been remarried twice now since then. He just got married recently this past summer, actually. So hopefully that one sticks.
What high school did you go to?
I went to C. Milton Wright High School in Bel Air, Maryland.
Is there any like sports or clubs that you participated in?
Absolutely. I played volleyball for the high
Okay.
school. I was on the varsity team for about 3 years. I wrestled on varsity my junior and senior year, and then I played baseball since my sophomore year.
Right after you graduated from high school, did you enter the workforce or did you attend college?
I went straight into the military. I
Okay.
left for basic training right after graduation.
Wow. Okay. How old were you when you enlisted?
I was 17.
Okay. What was your reason or reasons to enlist?
My reasons to enlist, ever since growing up, I kind of had this gravitation towards the military, just
Okay.
towards the sense of duty, sense of service. I had a couple role models growing up. My uncle was in the Marine Corps.
Okay.
My grandfather was an Army engineer. And I spent a lot of time around them while I was growing up, so it kind of paved the path for me. I already knew what I was doing. So.
Okay. What did your friends and family say about you enlisting?
Some of them were for it, some of them weren't. For instance, when I went to enlist, because I was 17, I had to have my parents sign off on it. My dad was all about it. My mom took a little convincing. I actually had to have my recruiter come to my house, sit down with my mom, and assure her that everything would be okay. And then she finally broke down and signed the paperwork and basically told the recruiter, you better take care of him. So.
Very protective.
Yep.
Where were you inducted?
I did my swearing in at Fort Meade at the MEP Center in Maryland. I swore in there, took my oath there, and then I left from Baltimore, Maryland to go to Parris Island, South Carolina for basic training.
And what year were you inducted?
That was 2007.
Okay, now to boot camp. Where did you go to boot camp?
Parris Island, South Carolina.
Okay, can you describe how it felt on the way to boot camp?
On the way there, it was kind of one of those surreal things. It was, wow, it's actually happening. I'm actually going. And at the same time, it was all the fears in the world, not knowing what's about to happen. But that kind of settled down the closer I got. It was one of those things where it just, I'm already here. It's going to happen. Just got to do it.
How was it at boot camp? Was it hard or?
It was difficult. The way it's designed, not that I knew it at the time, but the way it's designed is they have 3 stages. The first stage is basically to completely break you down, get all your old habits out of the way, do everything by the numbers kind of thing. And then the second stage is to build you back up the way that they want you to. And then the third stage is kind of to set you loose and, see how everything took. So.
Was there anything in particular that you remember as being the worst part of boot camp?
The worst part? I'd have to say, as much as I loved Sundays, Sundays were the worst because Sundays is when you got somewhat of a free time,
Mhm.
and that kind of left it open for individuals to mess up, and when one
Yeah.
individual messes up, everyone messes up.
Mhm.
So Sundays ended up not being that good day that we were supposed to have. So.
Do you feel that boot camp strengthened you other than physically? And how so?
Absolutely, I do. Uh, just going through the processes through boot camp, the responsibility that you carry while going through there. I mean, I was 17 years old and they handed me a rifle and said, "Okay, learn how to shoot." You know, that's a lot of responsibility that's put on someone, and just learning how to deal with that responsibility, how to deal with crisis. You know, say one of your guys gets injured while you're doing the crucible, which is the final test for a Marine. Going through that and dealing with those crises and learning how to problem solve and go through all that, that's what I really gained. The physical sense of boot camp, I mean, that's something that's going to happen to everyone, but where people truly shine and truly learn is in that mental capacity.
Was there any other training after boot camp?
Yeah. After boot camp, I went to what's called MCT, which is Marine Combat Training. It's the alternative for those who don't go directly to an infantry MOS, which is a job. I was going into what's called an engineer equipment operator. It's a designated 1345, basically heavy equipment. And because of that, I still had to go through Marine Combat Training. It's about 30 days training, basically going out, learning different tactics, strategies, stuff like that. And then after that, I went to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri for my MOS training to learn how to operate heavy equipment and basically how it's utilized through the Marine Corps and out on the battlefield.
Okay, you said that you were in the 4th Combat Engineer Battalion, correct?
Yes.
Okay, where were you stationed?
So that was actually a reserve unit that I was with, and that was based out of Baltimore.
Okay.
It encompassed basically the entire Maryland region, portions of Delaware, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was the battalion's main goal?
So our main goal, there's two different sides to it. You have your, what we call our garrison side, which is back in the States during peacetime. Then we have our combat side of things. While in garrison, it's mission readiness, 100%. Making sure that all of our equipment, whether it be heavy equipment, trucks, our explosives gear, or deck cord, everything, making sure that it's all 100%. That way, if we needed to be called upon, we were ready. The combat mission is a little bit different. Being attached to a combat engineer battalion, we mainly do route reconnaissance. We do route clearance, which is going out looking for IEDs, getting them off the road. We also do what's called force protection. That's building up bases, making sure they're secure, pushing berms, filling what's called HESCO, which is basically a big sandbox toy. But force protection, route clearance, and route reconnaissance were our main missions while we were overseas.
What did you specifically do as a part of the battalion?
My job, I was heavy equipment at first when I first went in. And my job was mainly towards the force protection side. Every now and then, if we were out on missions while in country and we came across obstacles or anything like that, we would utilize the heavy equipment to go ahead and breach those obstacles. That was my main mission early on, especially in my first deployment, which was to Iraq. When I deployed to Afghanistan, though, things kind of got switched up for me. I kind of stepped away from the heavy equipment and became our lead vehicle operator. So I was our lead vehicle driver looking for IEDs and all that.
Can you say how long you were in this battalion?
I was with them the entire time I was in the Marine Corps.
Oh, wow.
Minus my initial training, and that was about 7.5 years.
Wow,
Yep.
okay. What were the other units that you were part of?
So during deployments, our unit, being a reserve unit, actually gets attached to infantry units. The first deployment to Iraq, we were attached to 1-2, which their call sign was Timberwolf. And then I was on the, Special MAGTF 24, which stands for Special Marine Air Ground Task Force. That was on LPD 18, which is the USS New Orleans.
Okay.
We went down around the western coast of South America, training with the Peruvians, Colombians, different nations, showing them what we know and learning from them as well. And then when I went to Afghanistan, I was attached to 1-9, The Walking Dead.
Okay, and can you explain, like, what do you mean by attached?
So attachments are basically where a portion of a unit goes with the main body of another unit.
Okay.
For instance, when I was in Afghanistan, 1-9 was the main body. That was the infantry battalion that was there. They're pretty much in charge of everything. That's who we report to. Being an attachment to them is a smaller unit, so we only had a company-sized unit that went over, and when we go over as a company-sized unit, we get attached to an infantry unit to support them.
Okay, can you say where you were stationed in each of these units?
Yeah, I can. So when 4th Combat Engineer Battalion, we already know it's based out of Baltimore, Maryland. When I attached to 1-2, when I was in Iraq, we were based out of Habbaniyah, Iraq. When I was on SP MACTAF 24, the USS New Orleans, that was on the western coast of South America, and then specifically in Ancon, Peru. And then when I was in Afghanistan with 1-9, we were based out of FOB Geronimo.
Okay, was the 1st Battalion, 9th Marines, The Walking Dead the last unit you were in?
It's the last unit I was attached to.
Okay.
Officially, the last unit I was in was still 4th Combat Engineer Battalion.
Okay, what was it like in Iraq? Like, what was, like, the weather like?
Weather was definitely interesting. When I first got off the plane there, I thought that we stepped right behind the jet engines and they were still running.
Oh, wow.
But it wasn't the engines, it was just that hot. It took my breath away, and I was like, yeah, as long as I walk, keep walking, get out from behind the plane, it'll cool down a little bit, and it did. It took a lot of adjusting at first, getting acclimated to the weather, getting acclimated to the heat, learning how to drink a lot of water. But it very quickly became home. You get used to the surroundings, you get used to, the processes of everything while you're there. And beyond that, it was just dirty, sand everywhere. So.
What was it like in Afghanistan?
Afghanistan was a lot of the same. It's just a lot less surprise because I'd had the experience of Iraq already. The terrain itself was different. There was a lot more rural area that we were in, not necessarily heavily populated. When I was in Iraq, we were in a fairly heavily populated area, basically what I would call suburbs. When we were in Afghanistan, it was a lot of just open desert. So, see horizons everywhere you look. So,
what do you remember the most about being in the military?
The brotherhood, absolutely, hands down. It's one of the things I remember the most, and it's one of the things I miss the most, is that sense of brotherhood, being able to say that you've gone through something not necessarily favorable at the time, but you still made it through with those individuals.
When did you leave the military?
I separated from the Marine Corps in May of 2013.
What was your rank as you left the military?
I was an E4, corporal.
And why did you decide to leave the military?
That's a heavy question for me. As much as I love the Marine Corps, as much as I love the guys that I was with, ever since I entered into the Marine Corps, gotten out of my initial training, I always wanted to deploy. I wanted to go forward because I kept wanting to do more. Coming back from Afghanistan, it was a little more, I don't want to say more dangerous, but it was a more active deployment.
Okay.
And I sat there and recognized that if I didn't stop at some point, I would keep going until I was forced to stop. And that's what I didn't want happening.
Okay, so after the military, what did you do?
So after I got out of the Marine Corps, I came back and I worked for a insurance restoration company, Paul Davis Restoration out of Bel Air. My uncle actually worked there and
Okay.
got me the job. And I started working my way up through, just the processes there, through the rankings. I started out as a technician. A year later, I became a lead tech and then manager of the department, and then I switched departments and kept working there. The company had its ups and downs, wasn't exactly stable, and I realized that I didn't have any room for growth with them, so I decided to see what school was like.
How did it feel once you became a civilian again?
It was overwhelming at first. I no longer had the structure of you got to do this, you got to do that. The schedule, the structure, and everything just disappeared. And to be honest, at first, there was no job, so I had all this free time on my hands and no idea of what to do with it. It became very easy to not necessarily get into trouble, but slide in the wrong direction.
Yeah. When did you enroll in college?
Gosh, I gotta think now. So I'm a junior now. That'd be 2 years ago.
And where did you enroll?
Where or when?
Where?
Where? Oh,
Mhm.
I enrolled initially at a community college up in Maryland, Harvard Community College, just to get started. My buddy that I grew up with in high school and that joined the Marine Corps after me ended up coming to school down here and staying
Okay.
down here. And he had always been egging me on, you gotta go to school, you gotta go to school. And I had always had reasons not to.
Mhm.
I guess I just decided to try it out at the community college level first and see if it was something that I could do.
Yeah, start out slow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I ended up liking it, so.
What was your major at Harvard?
I originally started out as an engineering major.
Okay.
Quickly learned that I absolutely hated engineering. I took a couple engineering courses while I was there, and I realized that it was something that I enjoyed doing as a hobby, not necessarily something I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And my second semester there, I decided to change my major and do business administration.
Okay. When did you enroll at USC?
That was the summer of 2015 is when I applied, and then I ended up coming down this way a year later, actually, and started fall of 16 here.
Okay. And you said that your friend from high school is kind of like what you.
Yeah, he's the one that was pushing me for it, egging it on. He right out of high school went to Lander University,
Okay.
and he actually met his wife down here at school, ended up staying and living in Wagner. And he did all the legwork for me, really. He did all the research about the schools in the area. He found out that USCA was one of the most veteran-friendly schools on the East Coast. Had a couple friends that he worked with on site that came here and went through the veterans office and got me all the information and kind of just threw it at me and said, "Look, you just got to do it."
Why did you choose business administration as your major?
Business administration came into play after I realized I didn't want to do engineering.
Mm-hmm.
But I sat there and I was trying to think of what I was good at, what I had already known, working in the business field and insurance restoration, and what I enjoyed. And I quickly learned that what I enjoyed was dealing with people.
Okay.
And that major gives me the opportunity to do that.
Okay. What was the transition from military to college like?
It was difficult at first.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, the structure was gone, so
Yeah.
there was nobody waking me up at 6 a.m. saying, "Hey, you gotta go to class." And dealing with, it's not necessarily the transition from military to civilian life or college life, but just dealing with the different types of people in general. That was the biggest learning curve that I had. Not everybody thought the same way as it was in the military.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks the same way. They do the same thing. It just wasn't there anymore. So I had to be more aware. That was the hardest part of the transition.
Has the Student Veteran Success Center helped you for your transition?
Absolutely. When I first got in contact with them, one of the gentlemen that used to work in the Veteran Center, Nick Hartwig. He was the first person I dealt with and the only person I dealt with until I got down here. And he set everything up for me, made it nice and easy. And then once I got down here, I kind of stepped away from the Veteran Center for a little while, just trying to get a feel for everything around campus. And then I joined a fraternity, Teak, and my big was actually working at the Veteran Center.
Oh, wow.
And suggested that I come up and apply and, start working there and put me in a position where I could get in touch with more people on campus and more people that could relate to what I was going through.
Okay, as of right now, do you have, any hobbies that you like doing?
Yeah, my hobbies really revolve around the fraternity right now. Having an officer position in the fraternity, I'm keeping myself constantly busy. We do get to do some fun stuff, though. We went on a camping trip during fall break.
That's cool.
Just to get all the new guys coming in and, getting them to know the guys that are already active and all that. I do like outdoor stuff, though. Yeah.
Do you plan on going further after USCA in terms of college?
Eventually. Initially, my plan was to finish my bachelor's and go straight into an MBA. Life plans change, though. So I'll probably get my bachelor's, go out into the workforce, find a spot that's comfortable for me, and then move on with my MBA from there. Hopefully, who I work for helps pay for it. So.
Where do you see yourself 10 years from now?
Hopefully owning my own company, my own restoration firm. It's the one thing that I know outside of the military. It's one thing that I gravitated towards. So I think it'd be nice to build up some capital over the next, 5 to 8 years and kind of just take a dive and see what happens.
Can you explain what exactly insurance restoration is?
Yeah, so insurance restoration is dealing with primarily homeowners insurance. So say someone has a flood or a tree comes through their roof and it's raining and everything's just getting absolutely soaked, or even a fire. Insurance restoration firms and companies actually come in and work as a third party. So the way it's structured and set up, the homeowner contacts the insurance company contacts the restoration firm, and then the restoration firm deals with the estimates and the money with the insurance company, and then deals with quality assurance and the actual repairs with the homeowner. But it keeps it to where almost the insurance company and the homeowner never actually talk.
Okay.
It makes it fair for both the homeowner and the insurance company, and it's part of what the duties of the restoration firm is.
Okay, is there anything I've left out that you would like to mention?
I don't think so.
Military or anything after college?
Not really. We covered a lot as far as, the military itself, what I did, where I went, transitioned from military to civilian life, and then into college. And then even afterwards, so I think we covered a good bit.
Okay, well, thank you for your time, and definitely thank you for your service, Tristan.
Thank you.